Hey everyone, welcome to the Hornets Abroad application workshop. This video is designed to help you make your study abroad applications as strong as they can be. This is going to be for both direct exchange programs and also for CSU-IP. Even though the applications are a little bit different, the content is pretty much the same. So I thought it made more sense just to consolidate this video into one. And this video rather is going to apply to both programs that begin this fall in 2022, but also for the spring of 2023, because I don't think the application is going to change very much. And so these tips are still going to be valid even for the next application cycle. So there's quite a bit to discuss in this video. We're going to start off just by going over the basics of what you need to apply for a study abroad program. After that, we're going to talk about selecting classes and getting them approved. And then there's the writing portion, which I've split up into two parts. First part's about your direct exchange application, and the second part is how you can fill out the CSU-IP part. Next portion of this is going to be faculty recommendations and how to get one and who to get the recommendation from. Next is the language prerequisites. If you have a program that has some language prereqs, you're going to want to tune into that part of the video. And then after that is the budget, which only applies to direct exchange applications. CSU-IP applicants don't need to worry about that. And then finally, we're going to talk about when to submit, when the deadlines are, and what comes next after submission. So first, application basics. Everybody who applies to a study abroad program is going to need a passport, and make sure that your passport has at least 6 months of validity after the date that your study abroad program is going to end. If you have anything less than that, it can cause some complications with your visa, and you want to really just make sure you have enough time on the back end of your passport to give yourself that cushion. The next thing is I would highly encourage you to list a second choice program, just because not everybody gets their first choice. And unless you want to get offered a country that you really don't have much interest in, it's a good idea to give yourself a backup plan just in case the first choice doesn't work out. And then the last thing, if this is your first semester at Sac State and you're applying for a direct exchange program, please include transcripts from your community college or your previous CSU in your application when you apply. If you've been at Sac State for a little while, you don't need to do this because we'll just get your transcript from the registrar's office. And if you're applying for a CSU-IP program, then you just need to include your transcripts anyway. And so it's kind of a moot point. Okay, so to apply for a direct exchange program, it's pretty straightforward. We've got the application right there on the main page of the website. It's a 10-page PDF. You just download it, fill it out, email it back to us. You just email everything back except for the faculty recommendation form, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later. For CSU-IP programs, you would just apply directly through their program page. It's a bit more high tech, so they have an electronic application that you can fill out. And you can just do that through the program page on their website. So the first thing when you start working on your application is to start filling out a course list. And the best way to start that is just to think about, what do you still need to take to graduate? And then, write out those classes and then compare that with the course catalog of the overseas university that you want to go to. Right now, you just need to kind of use your best judgment to select classes that should work for you, that should be good course equivalencies. And then when you fill this out, this is the academic planning form for for Sac State exchange programs. CSU-IP has a very similar form that you would fill out, but this is for direct exchange. So you just list the courses you want to take abroad over here on the left, and then you can find some Sac State equivalencies and put those in the column next to it. And then after you do that, you'll want to meet with your academic advisor in your department and talk about your plan and make sure that you're on the right track. Because ultimately, you'll need to get the department to approve the classes that you've selected for the Sac State equivalencies. Our office here at the Study Abroad department can't approve any classes. It's not We don't have the mandate to do that. So you need to meet with your academic advisor and go over your proposed list of classes. But just know that at this stage, you don't actually need to have anything approved in writing. You don't need to do that until after you're already accepted into the program. For the application, it's enough to just write down a list of potential classes that you'd like to take overseas. And this is true for both direct exchange and CSU-IP. So if you need help finding the classes, if it's a direct exchange program, usually we link the course catalog to the program page. If for some reason you can't find it, just do a Google search for the university and then type in exchange student classes. That'll take you to their exchange student page, and you can find the course catalog there, along with some information about the student life, about the housing situation, the location, and all that good stuff. If it's for a CSU-IP program and you're trying to find courses, then you just navigate over to the academic information page, and they're either going to have the course the course catalog, the academic bulletin. Sometimes they have both, like this one for Nelson Mandela University will have both, and you just use that to put together your potential class list. Okay, so moving on to the writing section, for both CSU-IP and direct exchange applications, you're going to have to do a little bit of writing about why you chose that program. Some basic guidelines: be very specific about why you chose the program and how it relates to your academic and career goals. Also, why specifically you chose that location. Talk about specific experiences that you've had that are going to prepare you for studying abroad. Again, you want to be really specific. Don't talk in generalities about study abroad. Another thing you should try to avoid is talking about how much you've always wanted to travel. We know you want to travel, that's why you want to go abroad, but just for this part, try to kind of put that to the side and focus on the application, the academic reasons you've chosen this program, and also some location specific things. One of the location specific things I would avoid, though, is talking about how much you like the food. It's great that if you like international food or you like a food from a specific country, but you could get that in Sacramento. So we have a lot of great restaurants in the city. You want to focus on things that you could only get if you go to the country itself. So again, kind of put the food thing to the side for this section. Some other things you could do to focus on when you're writing is be professional. Really make sure you're editing this closely. Don't misspell things. Don't make grammatical mistakes. All that can reflect poorly on you and on your application, more importantly, when you turn it in. So ask for help from either your academic advisor. You can talk to one of the study abroad advisors. If you have a good relationship with the professor, that's another resource. Another really good resource on campus is the Writing Center. They have some great tutors over there who can help you out, not just with your study abroad application, but for any class. If you're having difficulty, please reach out to them, because they're a really excellent resource that we have here on campus. So for direct exchange applications, you're going to need to write a statement of purpose. Each statement of purpose is going to be about 500 words. So the best way to do that is to just break it up into 3 paragraphs. You can talk about your academic goals and your program location choice in the first paragraph. So again, be specific, talk about why you chose that program. What about the location appeals to you? What classes are you going to take? What was your academic reason for picking that program? And then when you move on to the second paragraph, you're going to talk about the preparation you've done. So what have you done in your academic and personal life to prepare you for going abroad? Have you studied the language at all? Do you know people from that country or who've gone there on study abroad that you've talked to? You can also talk about what kind of challenges you're expecting when you go to this country, and how you're going to overcome these when you get there. And then finally, the last paragraph, you want to talk about how this program is going to benefit you personally, how you're going to get some personal growth out of it, and also how it's going to tie into your future plans for your career that you're going to embark on once you graduate from Sac State. So if you can stick to those points and hit on those, and then put it in that order, you're going to have a really strong statement of purpose. For CSU-IP, it's my application's getting away from me here, but for CSU-IP, for the academic statement, that's what you're going to lead off with. You're going to, again, be specific about why you chose this program academically, reference any classes that you plan to take overseas, and how they relate to keeping you on track for graduation. It asks you to write 3 to 5 sentences for this question, but I always advise to write 5 because it'll show that you've put some thought and effort into satisfying this question. And so again, just this is a really important part of who's selected for their first choice, is what kind of academic reason you've chosen for the specific program. For the short answer questions for CSU-IP, there's 3 of them, and they're going to really just mirror what you would have put in a direct exchange statement of purpose. So for the first question, you want to expand on the academic reasons you chose this program. What's personally motivating you to pick that program specifically? What about the location appeals to you? Those kind of things. And then for question 2, it's the preparation question. So you can talk about what you've done academically to prepare you to go on this program. You can talk about relevant classes that you've taken. Maybe you studied the language. Talk about too, if you have different kinds of experience interacting with other cultures and diverse groups of people. And then for the third question, it's going to talk about how this experience is going to benefit you personally and professionally. So how are you going to grow as a person? What do you hope to gain out of it? How are you going to grow academically from studying abroad? And then how is this going to tie into your future plans and help you in your career once you do graduate from Sac State? For these questions, you're supposed to write 4 to 7 sentences. So I always recommend writing at least 6 sentences for each, again, because it shows that you're putting some thought and effort into your responses. I'm moving on here. So the next part is the faculty recommendations. Everybody who applies for both CSU-IP and direct exchange is going to need a faculty recommendation from some professor who gave you a grade. This professor needs to either be a Sac State professor, or if you're a transfer student, you can also use one from your community college or from a different CSU if you transferred in from another campus. In order to give yourself the best possible shot at getting your first choice, I would highly recommend that you get a recommendation from a faculty in your major, because that's going to be stronger than if it's just somebody else. But if you can't get somebody in your major, then it's fine to ask someone from another class. For CSU-IP, or sorry, for direct exchange rather, this is going to be the form that faculty is asked to submit. They need to email it directly to us. Just have them email it back to like the general study abroad email address. For the CSU-IP application, then when you are filling out the application, you just type in the professor's name and their email address, and they'll get an electronic version of the form they need to fill out. So a little bit different, but same kind of concept. So for faculty recommendations for us for direct exchange programs, we would really appreciate it if you would refer your faculty to the faculty, staff, and resources page. It's got the form they need to fill out. It's got instructions on completing the letter. It's also got guidelines for how they need to submit it. So please just, easiest thing is just to shoot them the link along with your recommendation request. You can find this page. It's just off our main website and under faculty and staff resources. Another thing to point out here, and this applies to both direct exchange and CSU-IP, is to make sure your professor is going to write you the recommendation before you send them a form, or before you send them a link. Sometimes they don't like it if they just kind of get blindsided with this stuff. So make sure they're willing to do it first. And then if you're having difficulty, one thing I've found that helps the professors is to send them your statement of purpose or your short answers to your CSU-IP questions if you're doing IP, because then the professor can read it, they can understand your motivations for applying to this program, and it helps them write a better letter ultimately. One last thing for CSU-IP, you're going to need a coordinator recommendation. That's going to be me. You can just put my name. And then if I would prefer it if you just use the general study abroad account for that, just put it in there. If it doesn't come up for some reason or doesn't let you, then you can use my personal one at Sac State, which is just underneath there. If for some reason my name doesn't appear manually from the drop-down menu, you're just going to have to type it in manually and have it sent that way. Some programs, some direct exchange programs and CSU-IP programs have language prerequisites. So you're going to need to account for that if you are applying to one of those programs. For direct exchange, we just ask you to fill out, to have your faculty member fill out a language evaluation for you. You can just direct them to send this form back to us. This form is available on the faculty and staff resources page that I referenced earlier, and it's also included along with your application as well. For CSU-IP, if there's a language prerequisite for them, there's a few different ways you can satisfy that requirement. The first is if you have documented coursework at the community college or the college level, that's one way. Another way is you can schedule a language placement test with the Department of World Languages and Literature here on campus. If you need to just kind of show that you're proficient at the level that you need to be, that's a good option. And then finally, if you're a native or a heritage level speaker, then you can just write that on the evaluation form. But if you do that, just know that you may still need to have a placement test just for verification. Okay, so the last part of the application that might apply to you is the budget form. This is if you're filling out a direct exchange application. There's a section where you need to put the cost of the total cost of the program. Just remember, you only need a ballpark figure, not an exact number. And you can use the number that we have on the programs page. Usually we have a cost breakdown of what we think the program is going to cost. This is really just about, having you realize what the total cost is going to be and making sure you have enough money to bring to the table so that you can afford the cost of the program. If you want to do a budget yourself, just to kind of like personalize it, the way you would do it is you put together these 6 different components and you add them up. So the first is the tuition cost, Sac State. Then you look at how much a round trip flight is going to cost from SAC or from SFO to your program location, put in the visa and the insurance cost, which is about $350 for a semester or $600 for a year. And then day-to-day costs, you can look and see how much it costs you to live in this place and put together a day budget. There's a website called numbeo.com that has some really good information there for the program. For the expenses of just daily things that you're going to need. And then what you do is put together a day budget, and then you multiply that out for how long you expect to be in the country. You can also find some information about the housing prices on numbeo.com, or you could look at the host university website. They usually have that information on there as well. Or you could just ask somebody who went on the program, ask them, where they lived, how much they spent, and you can get the information that way. And then the final piece of this is the travel component. How much money are you going to have for traveling? This is really coming down to the individual and how much you have available, what your preferences are for traveling. But don't forget to include that because it can be overlooked and then you don't really have any money to travel. So another thing I would say about travel while I'm on the subject is try to wait, till like near the end of your program to do your traveling, because you want to really take the first month or two to get settled in, to make some friends, to learn about the program site that you're at, and really feel comfortable. And then once you've kind of established a base, then you can start, making plans to travel. Another benefit of leaving travel like more towards the end is that you'll know that you have money left over to travel. Whereas if you go at the beginning, then you kind of like blow through it and you might, find that you don't have any money at the very end, and that can lead to some problems. And you kind of want to avoid that situation. So once you figure out how much the cost of all this is going to be, then you can start thinking about how much, what kind of resources you can bring to the table to fund it. FAFSA is always a really good option. If you haven't applied for financial aid, I would recommend doing it just to see how much you're going to be offered. You never have to accept financial aid, but it's good to know what's available for you. And then if, factor in if your family is going to be able to help you out at all, if you've got any personal savings you can contribute. And then the last is scholarships. And there's a lot of study abroad scholarships out there, and I would encourage you to take a little bit of time to research them, see what you're eligible for, and then apply. We have a good list of scholarships on our website. It's just under the Study Abroad Finances page. You can see what's listed there. We have a couple here at Sac State, and then a number of ones that are available at the national level. Just a few to kind of draw your attention to. If you're going to Asia on a study abroad program, the Freeman Asia could be a really good option for you. There's the Fund for Education Abroad, which is more widespread. It doesn't really, there's no specific location you need to be going to. And then lastly, if you're looking to study a language, specifically, particularly like an Asian language, like Korean, Chinese, Japanese, Thai even is on that list, and you want to work for the federal government, or you're interested in government service after you graduate from college, look into the Boren, because the Boren, it can provide you quite a bit of money for your program, and it can also open a lot of career doors if you end up getting it. So those are just a few that I wanted to spotlight here. Sac State students have been able to get all of these at different times, so it's possible. You just have to spend a little bit of time researching, working on your essays, and really putting a little bit of time into your applications. Another scholarship that I'd like to highlight while I'm here is the Gilman, because Sac State consistently ranks in the top universities in the country for Gilman recipients. You can get between $2,000 and $8,000 depending on the award. The only criteria is you have to be a US citizen and be receiving Pell Grants, but if those two things apply to you, then please apply to the Gilman. We offer some workshops on how to fill out the application and how to write the essays, so just check our website for details on that. We usually start our workshops about a month before the deadline. So there's 2 different deadlines for Gilman depending on the cycles that you're applying for. So for fall and academic year, the deadline for the Gilman Scholarship is March 8th. And for the spring and the calendar year programs, those are that deadline is going to be October 4th. So keep those dates in mind. And then if this applies to you, please consider applying for the Gilman, because as long as you take the time to work on the essays, you should have a pretty realistic shot of getting some money from them. And I'm always happy to help take a look at Gilman essays and give you some feedback. So please use me as a resource as well if you'd like to apply. So lastly, some important information, deadlines when you need to submit your study abroad applications. If you're applying to a CSU-IP program for the fall or the academic year, you'll want to submit by February 15th. If you're doing a Sac State Direct Exchange program, the deadline is going to be March 1st. And if you're applying for a spring or a calendar year program, then you're going to apply in September. So just keep those deadlines in mind, and definitely submit by then, because as long as you meet the prerequisites and you have a good academic reason for going, you'll probably get accepted, if not into your first choice, then most likely into your second. So once you submit, the next things to be on the lookout for is keep an eye on your inbox, because we might be following up to ask you for an interview or a check-in. If you apply for a Sac State Direct Exchange program, if you apply for CSU-IP, then they're going to be the ones contacting you. If you apply for a fall or academic year program, you should know the result of your application by mid to late March, depending on the program. Some programs will hear earlier than others, just because of the deadlines that we have with the partners. And if you apply for a spring or calendar year program, you should know the result of your application by mid to late September, again, depending on the program that you applied to. Some programs will hear earlier than others. So if your friend applied to one place and you applied to the other and your friend hears before you do, don't panic. It just means you're on a different timeline and you'll be hearing soon afterwards. So that's about it. If you still have questions after that, please sign up for advising. You can just, use the link on the website there or send me an email just to the General Study Abroad account. I'm happy to help, and I'll look forward to helping you get abroad. Thank you for watching.